We open with more on the ongoing trade tensions between China and the United States. The Chinese Commerce Ministry says China has no choice but to retaliate against the latest round of US tariffs. The ministry says the proposed levies bring new uncertainties to trade negotiations between the two countries. US President Donald Trump has escalated his trade war with China by imposing 10% tariffs on Chinese imports worth about $200 billion. He's also warned that if China retaliates against American farmers or industries, he would immediately pursue Phase 3. That includes further tariffs on an additional $267 billion worth of imports. The Commerce Ministry hasn't specified what actions it plans to take. China has repeatedly said there are no winners in a trade war. Well, China's foreign ministry has spoken out as well. It says any negotiations between the two countries need to take place on an equal footing.
If the U.S. announces new tariffs on Chinese goods, China will have to take necessary countermeasures to defend our interests. The escalation of trade tensions is not in the interests of either side. Our position on trade issues is consistent. Dialogue and negotiations based on equality and mutual respect are the only way to resolve trade disputes with Washington.
Well, for more on the additional U.S. tariffs, we are joined by Hu Na in Beijing. China's Ministry of Commerce has already released a statement following the U.S. announcement. Briefly, what is in that statement?
Well, Beijing has said it would not back off following a new tariff announcement from the Trump administration. China's Ministry of Commerce made a statement earlier today. It said China will levy retaliatory tariffs simultaneously with the U.S. on American imports in response to Washington's latest announcement round of tariffs. Spokesperson said that China felt deeply regretful over the decision. China will be forced to take synchronous countermeasures to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests, as well as the global free trade order. While China hopes that the U.S. side recognize the potentially harmful consequences of such an action and timely rectify the situation with convincing means. Well, shortly after the Ministry of Commerce, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs also reiterated China's stance on this issue, condemning the U.S. new tariffs move as a, quote, lack of sincerity and goodwill. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang said China has repeatedly stressed the dialogue on the basis of equality, integrity, and mutual respect is the right way to resolve the issue. The U.S. current unilateral trade actions are unacceptable. Geng said the U.S. action is not conducive to maintaining the global free trade order. It also brings new uncertainties to the bilateral negotiations between China and the U.S. Karen.
And Hu Na, what is China doing specifically to tackle this trade friction with the U.S.?
Well, China already had a list of $60 billion worth of U.S. goods in response to the U.S. tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods. Well, tariff rate on the $60 billion goods varies from 5 to 25%. It was announced after the Trump administration's proposed to raise tariff rate on those goods from 10 to 25%. Well, China's list includes lots of consumer products such as honey, toothbrush, diapers, sunglasses, seatbelts, among others. Meanwhile, in Beijing, China and the U.S. scholars and experts got together to figure out a solution for the trade friction. At the China Development Forum on Monday, experts noted that pushing hard on China has long been a fundamental belief of President Donald Trump, and that if Trump proceeds with a new tariff on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods, U.S. companies in China will also suffer. Well, Beijing is also keeping close contact with the U.S. and global business world to mitigate the impact of tariffs. Officials from the Commerce Ministry met with executives from 6 leading companies Monday, including Emerson, HSBC, Toyota, and Samsung. But the ministry also promised to introduce new reforms and improve business environment for foreign enterprises. Back to you, Karen.
Okay, Hu Na in Beijing, thank you for that update on the additional U.S. tariffs. The ongoing trade tensions between China and the U.S. are a hot topic at the two-day session of the China Development Forum in Beijing. CGTN's Zhou Yun takes a look at what the experts are saying and their suggested solutions.
a tough stance on China.
I think we need to take a much harder look at China. Our trade with China is more than just a little one-sided. China sells in the U.S. about 4 times what we're allowed to sell in Chinese market.
And who does it come from?
That was written by President Trump, but do you know when? In the 1990s.
Experts at the fall session of China Development Forum says this means the notion of pushing hard on China has long been a fundamental belief of President Donald Trump, and many say it's the wrong attitude.
I'm more critical at this moment about President Donald Trump's China policy and overall Washington establishment's study of China.
William Zarit is the chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in China. He says their surveys show if the Trump administration proceeds with a $200 billion of tariff hike on Chinese imports and China retaliate with $60 billion on American imports, U.S. companies in China will suffer more via the U.S. tariffs. And Zarit says this is ironic given the tariffs are designed to impact Chinese economy.
3 out of 4 American companies are adversely affected by U.S. tariffs, and maybe 60% are adversely affected by the Chinese tariffs. So the companies, and remember, these are folks doing business in China.
Other experts at the forum claim that whatever the U.S. is demanding is very much in line with what the Chinese government promised or planned to do.
Protecting intellectual property rights, opening up the services sector, and upgrading our industry using some kind of industrial policy. If you have a chance to read the comprehensive reform program announced at the 3rd plenum of the 18th Party Congress, you would find exactly that.
Experts at the forum share a similar belief, which is the nature of China-U.S. economic cooperation is win-win and mutually beneficial. And before the trade tension between those two countries get resolved, what the U.S. needs to do is to be crystal clear about what it really wants, and for China is to keep pushing up the reform and opening up. So Yun, CGTN, Beijing.